Hello, welcome to the Colts Cover 2 podcast. I am Nat Newell, the IndyStar sports editor. I'm here with Joel A. Erickson, our Colts insider. We need you to like and subscribe to our podcast. Like and subscribe to the podcast. We will preview the Colts' upcoming game with the Los Angeles Rams. This is clearly the best team the Colts have played this year. I think the Broncos are better than their record right now. So I don't want to get too deep into their teams they've played against are 1-8, but the teams they've played against are 1-8. So, what are your thoughts on the Rams?
Well, it's just a team that doesn't have. I think the difference between the Rams and the Broncos is it feels to me like the Rams have a better quarterback with Stafford at the helm instead of Bo Nix, and I do think that matters in terms of the overall strength of the team. Other than that, I think the one thing that's probably different is that the Rams' offensive line hasn't looked very good so far this season. The larger question, though, is can the Colts pass rush take advantage of that? It's been a spotty pass rush, I think. They had 4 sacks the other day, but if you look at the Pro Football Reference stats, they're 25th in pressure rate at like 15.7% of dropbacks turn into pressures. And I just feel like just watching it bears that out because it just feels like they haven't been it feels like the Colts haven't been a consistent pressure team so far.
Yeah, I mean, as anyone who listened to the First Impressions podcast, I correctly put the pass rush in the one to throw away. They had a lot of sacks. I don't think they mean a ton. This is all going to come down to Latu. I mean, is there reason to be hopeful that? Is the ship sailed on him being a serious pass rusher, or do you think? And is it enough if he's just a good player, different player, but good player on the level of Kwity Paye or someone like that?
I'm going to do those questions backwards. I think number one, it's not good enough if he's just a good player. They need him to be a real difference maker, a real weapon off the edge. For this pass rush to be something more than it's been before, which essentially what this pass rush has been before is DeForest Buckner and a bunch of guys, kind of trying to make their own plays or try to make plays off of him. When they've had sacks this season so far, it's been a lot of that where guys are scrambling around and kind of scrambling up into guys like Kwity Paye. Paye, at this point, just really as a quick aside, we kind of know what he is. He's a second effort rusher. He'll get some sacks by closing down the pocket and power rushing, but he's never going to be the kind of weapon that they first envisioned when they got him. He's more of a Jabal Sheard type player than he is a premier pass rusher. So that's kind of where they are with most of their defensive ends. With Latu, I think the weird thing this week has been that, I don't love necessarily, I guess, questioning some of the analytic sites, but there's not really a way around it in this one. Latu, according to, if you look at the PFF grades, and some people I know really believe in Pro Football Focus's grading system. I don't and haven't for a long time. I don't agree with a lot of their method of deciding what goes where. It seems to me a lot that they emphasize extra plays a little too much and de-emphasize normal plays. That's specifically in the quarterback position, but also I feel like a lot of times their pressure numbers and stuff like that is off with some of the other sites. They have Latu as the best edge rusher in the NFL so far.
Wow.
And so a lot of people are going to hear us talking about Latu and say, well, PFF has him as the best edge rusher in the NFL this year. I think someone told me today that because I don't subscribe to Pro Football Focus. They put that stuff on Twitter though, so it's easy to see it. Someone told me today that they gave him an oversized grade for his interception in coverage, and that's pulled stuff up. I think their pressure numbers are probably off too. So 2 of the other sites that we use, Sports Info Solutions has him at 5 pressures for the season so far. Pro Football Reference seems to count hurries as more of what other people count pressures as. They have him at 2. He had some some plays where he was in the backfield last game. I think it's somewhere in the middle of all that, but it's definitely not. He's definitely not the best edge rusher in football. Like
I am more of a numbers guy.
He's got no sacks, and he also doesn't have a quarterback hit this year so far.
Right. I am more of a numbers guy than Joel is. I am not disputing anything he just said in terms of Latu specifically, or really in general, the pro football focus. I haven't studied them well enough to have an opinion, but I will say I appreciate their willingness, all of these sites' willingness to look into this stuff and try to come up with a number that shows what these guys are doing that isn't that current statistics don't show. So I respect and appreciate that. I would also say it's not like touchdowns and interceptions are perfect stats either. There's any number of dropped interceptions, things like that. Every statistic needs to be put in some kind of context. So again, I am perfectly happy to tell Joel he's wrong. I'm not telling him he's wrong in this case. But I do want to say I appreciate them trying to do this. I would have a hard time saying Latu is the best pass rusher in the NFL. If he is, I will happily come on this podcast and say I was wrong, as I have said I was wrong when Daniel Jones was not only not any good, and he's turned out to be the best quarterback in the NFL. So, but again, you want to win every game, blah, blah, blah. If they play well against the Rams, like if they lose 35-28 but belong on the field, it doesn't change my opinion of where they're at and the team this year. Where are you on that going into this one?
Yeah, I think this is going to keep happening. The conversation with the Colts is going to kind of all season be people wondering if they're real. That's just the way it's going to be looked at nationally. Some of that is the fact that they're coming off of 4 straight seasons without making the playoffs. Some of it is less than that. Some of it is going to be more along the lines of Daniel Jones. People just don't believe Daniel Jones can play quarterback well. Honestly, I think if you're leading the division, there's only 6 teams that are undefeated. So far, we haven't seen anything to make us think that this is not sustainable as far as their level of play. And I really think that, like, if you're looking for a game as a litmus test, this is kind of a litmus test game, but it's more so a litmus test if they win than if they lose. So I'm going to try to explain that because that sounds crazy, I know, but
I think I know what you mean. Like,
if you lose, like, isn't this the kind of game that everyone's expected to lose? Going to the West Coast to play a team that's 2-1 and almost beat the Eagles last week, like that would be a hard game for a lot of teams, correct?
Right.
So a lot of teams would be expected to lose this game. If they win, if they go to the West Coast and beat the Rams after the Rams started 2-0 and took the Eagles to the wire last week, I think it would legitimize something for a lot of people. I don't know if it should or if it shouldn't, but if they win, I think you look at this team really, really differently. And I also think if you win, the rest of the AFC South is in big trouble because 2 of those teams are 0-3. The Jaguars have a bunch of good teams coming up and haven't looked great in theirs. And so I think if you get to 4-0, yeah, I think you're in a really good spot if you're the Colts.
Yeah, I don't know how there's no caveats left. If they're 4-0 after this one, you got to take them as a really serious team, whether you want to or not. And again, I'm not going to – I said Daniel Jones was terrible, and he's not. I also said they have a lot of weapons. So if Daniel Jones is good, there's no reason to think that this couldn't be, at the very minimum, a playoff team at this point. I mean, there's zero reason not to think that. And if they go out and lose 41-7, that's just a different story. But if they lose this game in their – I mean, the same thing with the Broncos game. I mean, yeah, they literally lost the game. The time expired for them not having fewer points before the penalty, which is questionable depending on who you want to talk to. But they still played really well in that game. The Colts are better than I expected they are whether they won that game or lost it. So, and I think, and even more so in this one, in that the Rams, I think, are better clearly than the Broncos have turned out to be.
I think the larger issue is going to be if something changes our mind about and it gives us reason to doubt what we've seen from the offense, specifically from Jones. Because so far what we've seen from Jones is he's been really good under pressure. He hasn't really taken sacks. He's really minimized negative plays, and he's pushed the ball down the field. Now, a turnover is going to come at some point. Like, I think Aaron Rodgers was the guy who was once asked, because Rodgers had a stretch there where I think he probably still is the all-time leader in fewest interception per snaps. He's the anti-interception guy. And so he was asked a couple times if he thought that you could go an entire season without throwing a pick. And he said, there's no way, because there's tip balls. There's stuff that you can't predict. Like, there's just no way to happen. So at some point, Daniel Jones is going to throw an interception. At some point, he's going to get sacked more than once in a game, I think. It's really rare for a team. I don't think a team's really ever gone that far without it. But at the same time, if it's one interception, even if it's two interceptions, if those are, interceptions where he gets the ball batted, if it gets tipped, it's a contested ball and a receiver drops it. If the rest of the game looks pretty good, that I just don't think, because I already have some concerns with this team's defense. I really don't think anything that happens defensively would change my opinion, because some of the stuff the Rams do specifically and some of the things Matthew Stafford does, I think are not good for this defense, specifically him getting the ball out of the pocket really quickly, because it feels like when the Colts have gotten pressures, it's been later in the down. There is no later in the down with Stafford usually. So I think the defensive stuff I'm kind of expecting. It's the offensive stuff where you're going, okay, is Daniel Jones going to be this guy? We keep saying that over and over again, and then he keeps doing it. And so now we're at the point where it's like, now we've got to start looking for some kind of hole that we're not seeing.
Yeah, let's go to our number one fan here. Rambo25 has a couple of questions. First, he is glad you made it home in the darkness. I will admit it is difficult. It is weird conducting a interview in which the cameras are on and you cannot see the person you're talking to. So that was a new experience for me. Now we'll get to Rambo 25's questions. This is a good one. How concerned are you about the Colts offense in the red zone? Speaking of Daniel Jones and only saying nice things, but this has been a problem for the Colts.
Yeah, I think I'm still, somewhat concerned about this. If there's a clear hole for this team, it's definitely the red zone. You want to score touchdowns. I think that's obvious. It does make for a fun stat. I have to point Derek Schultz out because he found this. I think I sent it to you before we did the podcast. That it's made for a fun stat that Spencer Schrader's right leg has scored more points than the entire Houston Texans roster at this point. I think that's a very fun stat. But yes, you generally want to score more touchdowns. I don't know that I have a great idea on how, because they tried to run the ball in the red zone last week, and they kind of banged away against some bad fronts for the Titans and didn't get anywhere. So running the ball more doesn't seem to be the answer. It just got to be a little bit better down there. And I guess they probably have to hope that there's some regression coming, positive regression coming for what they've had so far. But yeah, I do think that's a concern.
And if you punt once every 3 games, or you probably don't have to be a good red zone offense, because if you're going to drive into the red zone every drive, it's okay to only score on half of them. But it does seem like there's some an adjustment coming here in terms of how things, in terms of the numbers for the Colts. I actually have not ever seen any information on whether red zone offense is statistically significant or not. I would assume there is at least some significance to it. Jonathan Taylor is as great as he is, and he may be the best running back in football right now, is not a good short yardage back. So that could be part of the problem. Maybe they could find some answer there in terms of giving the ball to someone else. Although DJ Giddens is a rookie, I don't know. What do we know about that? Goodson doesn't seem like a battering ram type either. So, but Jones has got 3 touchdowns in close, so that's one thing that they've done well. But he also only has 1 touchdown in each game. So yeah, there's some weird good statistics, but not probably sustainable statistics. But they could go either way. They could get worse, or they could get better very easily. So, Rambo 25.
Well, the other thing with the red zone is just like some of the plays that people talk about in the red zone. Like Tyler Warren's a big player. Alec Pierce is a good jump ball player. Michael Pittman is really good at walling people off of his body. Like, they have the guys to do some of that stuff. I think some of that stuff is a little bit overblown in terms of how teams score in the red zone. I feel like when I'm watching games a lot, if they're passing it, a lot of times it's, a guy kind of just gets open and gets lost in the end zone. So maybe they need to do a little bit more of that. I don't know. I'd be curious to talk to somebody who's got a better handle on what makes red zone offense and passing game work. I mean, Shane Steichen is obviously one of these people, but I think Colts fans know by now he doesn't typically tell us those things on the record. Every once in a while we get some stuff off the record. He alluded to that the other day, but he's not usually good about like explaining what you need in the red zone that's different from the other spot. And I would probably need a little bit more. I would want to see some of the numbers, because I actually hate some of the stuff that people think is red zone. I don't want to throw a bunch of fades at Tyler Warren.
Fades are terrible. Yeah, they look
as good as he is. That's
just
a low percentage play.
All right, we got one more question, another good one from Rambo25. How alarming is it to you that the dreaded word Achilles was mentioned with Kenny Moore's knee injury? Now, at this point, the Tyrese Halliburton, James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson all had Achilles injuries for the Pacers. Caitlin Clark had various muscle injuries. Clearly, there's something in the water for premium athletes that is causing leg muscle injuries in Indianapolis, and Kenny Moore is the latest victim. So how concerning is it based on what you were told today?
I think it's concerning. I think it's concerning. I bet that there's probably some confirmation bias in my head here when I think about Achilles injuries. But I just know that there's been a handful of players in recent seasons where they kind of were battling an Achilles, and then it went bad on them. Like Dre Greenlaw tearing his Achilles in the Super Bowl, just running off the sideline. He was somebody who'd battled that injury for a while, and then it just kind of went on him. Richard Sherman, I think, had a season with the Seahawks where he was kind of battling his Achilles, and then tore it. There's been a few of those like that where you have injuries that linger. So I think it's interesting that they said they're not going to put him on IR yet. It's kind of weird to me that they're not going to put him on IR yet. I don't know. I would just want to be 1,000% sure. And I'm sure they're going to do imaging and everything like that. I think they probably do more MRIs than we realize. But yeah, I'm concerned that it says Achilles, because it seems like that's something that whenever it's sore, it's in danger of something bad happening.
That's the anecdotal evidence. There's everything I've read is that there's no one knows. It's not like people are saying, no, this is false, but they don't know one way or the other. But yeah, it would be really hard to put him back out there without knowing everything was good. I mean, and I'm no doctor. If you strain your Achilles, what's that mean? If you've got a bigger tear, what's that mean? Can you play through it? Who knows? How do you feel about who's replacing Moore? How are they going to handle that with him being out? Seems like he's definitely going to be out at least this week, maybe more than
that. It sounds to me like it's going to be. And my son Watley, my 3-year-old, is trying to get me to eat a carrot on camera right now. I don't want that, Watley. Anyway, it sounds like it's going to be Mike Hilton. They kind of tried to obscure that with the coaches. They didn't act like it was going to be Mike Hilton there for a second. And I think it's going to be Mike Hilton, because he said he expects to play this week. And I kind of got the impression that he meant he expects to play a lot. So to me, that's a sign that maybe it's going to be a veteran who the Dolphins cut. They did this kind of with Xavier Howard too, where you're just essentially bringing a guy off the street and putting him in the game right away. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, coverage-wise, but that's what it seems to be. It seems that they're going to go with the veteran and continue to use Mekhi Blackmon in his dime substitution rotation role to go against speedy guys. The Rams do have a speedy guy. They do have Tutu Atwell. That would be the guy that I think Blackmon would match up against.
Yeah, it's clear that Anarumo, or at least sure seems clear that Anarumo wants veterans and is a little less interested in playing rookies. I think you've mentioned, they were ready to go with Justin Wally, who's a rookie. But I do find it interesting that he has more faith in these veterans. I get it, but I'd also like to see them focus a little bit more on overall talent. But, are they going to regret cutting loose Juju Brents when this is all said and done? Joel clearly would prefer a more veteran child at this point.
The door to my office was shut, and my kids came in because it started raining, and then all of them were like, "Oh, look, a shut door. Let's go see what Dad's doing."
That means it needs to be open.
Yeah, and they were like, "Surely that's an accident. We don't mean to have the door shut for any reason." So yeah, we're trying to get. I've gotten them to take the carrots out of the office. I've gotten Watley is. The other thing about Watley is when he eats a carrot, he's just dipping it and then taking the sauce off the sauce off of it, or the dip off of the carrot, and then dipping it back in. So it's very gross.
Yeah. Well, as long as he's the only one using the dip, I think you're okay.
Anarumo and his thing. I actually think with veterans with a nickel position, it probably makes the most sense because the nickel position is complex. It's more complicated than anything else. You're dealing with people going one way or the other. You have to have a good blitzer there. Mike Hilton's a good blitzer. If anyone knows what position to put Mike Hilton in for him to be successful, it's probably Lou Anarumo. I will say this, though. I was told by somebody who covers the Bengals that last year they were rotating Hilton, even in the slot. They were using other people in the slot, and that was with Anarumo as defensive coordinator. So that tells me that it's probably more of a veteran role, and I'm kind of interested to see what the drop off is because Puka Nacua, I think our former Colts beat writer Nate Atkins was tweeting that they like to use him out of the slot, and that's not great with Kenny Moore being injured.
We have another question here from Sean Zibikowski. I hope I'm getting that correct. Well, not a question.
The same way as Tom.
Was fantastic in the red zone. What I am actually, Sean, we're going to put you on the spot here because I am looking up Anthony Richardson's red zone numbers as we speak. But Joel, what's your recollection? Is that a fair statement that Richardson was great in the red zone?
Yeah, I think he was generally pretty good in the red zone. Some of it had to do with his legs. I think his passing numbers, like of all the areas, I think that's where his passing numbers look the best. The hard part here is like you're not just going to sub a different quarterback into the red zone. They haven't really used Daniel Jones as a runner very often. And maybe they tried to do it. They did it a little bit. I think they scored a touchdown on that drive. They used Jones as a runner at one point in the red zone in Tennessee. I think maybe you could lean into that a little bit just to give a different look. But the thing you lose, though, is that I don't think Jones is going to run people over at the goal line the way Richardson did, which made for some good plays, but also knocked him out of some games.
All right. Here are Richardson's numbers in the red zone during his career. He threw 28 passes, completed 12 of them. That's 42.9%. That's not good. 81 yards. Yards really don't matter. It's really hard to judge yards in the red zone because it's such a short field. 5 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, took 2 sacks, 7 first downs. That's a passer rating of 60.1. That's awful. And again, I will look up some more context here. Rushing the ball, however, 28 attempts, 134 yards. That's a 4.8 yard average. 9 touchdowns, 14 first downs. So that is 14 touchdowns, 7 more first downs after that on 56 attempts. So, there might be something there. I don't think it's fair to say he was fantastic in the red zone. But there might be but certainly he had some tools that, that made him that made him effective in that role, certainly with his size, obviously.
Would you like the hard part here is if you're putting him in the red zone and he's not your starter, are you risking your backup quarterback for what may be marginal gains? Because the other thing is if he's coming in the red zone now, I would assume that everyone's assuming he's running it, which they probably were before, but even more so now because I think everyone would rather have Jones throwing than Richardson at this point. So
yeah, I don't see how you could just bring him in and make him the red zone quarterback or anything like that. Or at least that would be a tough sell given what Jones has done. It's an interesting idea, and maybe there's a short yardage package in there. But Jones is pretty good on short yardage too. So I just don't know that the pluses don't seem to outweigh the minuses there. Although I do like
maybe
confidence in his position, and it is a fun thing to talk about. So
maybe Tyler Warren.
Yeah, have him playing Wildcat quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a Wildcat and you don't want to take Jones out of the game, maybe Tyler Warren is somebody you look at in that spot. But I also think maybe that you're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna really run Jones the way the Giants did. Which we can maybe get into this, but the Giants, the way Jones is playing just makes me think the Giants are a mess. But the Giants kind of used him as only a runner. The Colts have used him as mostly a passer. Maybe in the red zone we start to see a little bit more of Jones as a runner. They just ran that halfback ISO. It'd be a good play off of the halfback ISO. A boot. Old school quarterback boot.
The one thing I hate is where you line up everybody tight. And then try to run the ball because you have more defensive players than you have blockers because the quarterback's not blocking anyone and the running back's not blocking anyone. So you have to throw the ball out of that formation unless you just are dominant up front. So I'll always hate, the play action pass out of that I like. Everything else I hate. But another important topic here is something that you wrote about today, and that is Daniel Jones's nickname. Danny Dimes or Indiana Jones. I didn't tell Joel we were going to ask him this because I knew he would try to talk me out of it. To his credit, though, he did write the story today. I think they're both terrible. I also thought Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones were both terrible. I was wrong about that. Am I wrong about Daniel Jones's nicknames?
Yeah, I think you are. I've had other people from other markets. One comment was Indiana Jones as a fire nickname. I actually prefer what his Colts teammates have done. They just shortened it to Dimes instead of Danny Dimes. I kind of like that better, just going with just Dimes. But I actually think both of these nicknames are honestly, Indiana Jones is a little bit too on the nose. I think that's what you don't like about it. Danny Dimes, I think, is way better than what we get for most nicknames these days, where we just like take a player's initials and we're like, oh, this is his nickname. Like
Indiana Jones is just too cliche. I would agree with that. That's why I don't like it. I'd be good with Danny Dimes, except he's not a Danny Dimes. I mean, watch him. He's not. Danny Dimes is someone who's like got a little zip to him in terms of what they public, and he's not. Now, the one thing I saw, I wish I could remember who. I saw someone refer to him as Danny Dollars because he's playing so well. I like that. The fact that you can play off of the dimes with the dollars, I do like that. So I guess I would go Danny Dimes over Indiana Jones, but he just doesn't seem like a Danny Dimes to me.
Hear me out though. What if it is a something that's more of a like tongue-in-cheek thing? Like there was so when I was playing high school sports in northern Wisconsin, one of the rival schools had this guy who ended up playing nose tackle at Wisconsin for a little bit, and he was like 6'2", 280 pounds when we were in high school, and everybody called him Tinker.
Where did Tinker come from?
Tinker Bell, the Peter Pan fairy, because he was so huge, and we were calling him his name I think was Jamie Hinker, so it was a play on that, but it was also a play on this guy is so big, so we're going to call him something small because it's funny. Can you make a case for that with the Danny Dimes nickname?
I don't know. Someone would have to provide some serious background on that for me to buy that.
Danny Dimes feels more like a New York nickname. Danny Dimes feels like Danny Dimes. Someone brought this up today actually at the complex, and they were like, Danny Dimes sounds like a character that Al Pacino has do something in a movie. Like it kind of fits New York a little bit better than it fits Indianapolis.
And we can also discuss another topic of conversation is what it'll cost to keep Daniel Jones next year. I looked up the numbers. This is really not too complicated or scientific. There's three obvious, quarterbacks to compare him to in Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold. All three are guys who were not good, went somewhere else and got better. They all have almost the exact same salary right now. It is I think Darnold is at 33.3. Then they have Geno Smith is at 37.4. Yeah. And Baker Mayfield was at 33.5. I might be getting Darnold and Mayfield mixed up. But anyway, Smith got 2 years. The other two got 3 years. Daniel Jones is basically the same age as the other two. So a 3-year contract seems to make sense. I think with it being with inflation and or the salaries go up. I mean, 110 to 120 million over 3 years, maybe 60 million guaranteed. Do you think that's in the ballpark for what Daniel Jones will cost the Colts or whoever else wants to sign him going forward?
Yeah, I've said this before on this podcast, and I think it's important to remember, like, NFL contracts are about comps. They're about what comparisons, what quarterback looks like this quarterback, what did this guy who's like you get. That's how they do them. And then the negotiating is based on how much are you like that guy, how much are we willing to give you. I think Mayfield and Darnold are the obvious ones because they're 27 and 28. They're, like you said, it's Mayfield is 33 and a third, Darnold is 33 and a half. Here's the thing, and this is what I think is important. If you go by average annual value, yeah, because I know some people are probably going to balk at those numbers. 6. Those guys that we just mentioned are like the 18th through 20th highest paid quarterbacks in the league. And if Daniel Jones continues to play like this, he continues to look good, and they go to the playoffs, they win the division, they go to the playoffs, maybe they win a playoff game, they want to re-sign him and bring him back. Like, it's going to feel like a lot of money because 30 million, 35 million, or 36 million, or whatever it's going to be, is going to feel like a ton of money in the moment. But the reality is we've all kind of lost track of what the average annual salaries are for these guys. Dak Prescott is getting $60 million a year. Jordan Love is at 55. Joe Burrow's at 55. Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, they're at 55. Tua Tagovailoa is getting paid $53.1 million per year over a 4-year deal. Brock Purdy is getting $53 million a year over 5. Like, it's going to feel like sticker shock, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Like, that's actually those guys, Baker Mayfield especially, I think even more than Darnold. We'll see how Darnold does with the Seahawks, although they are 2-1. But those two guys are a deal for the level of play they're giving compared to what they're getting paid right now. So if Jones ends up in that ballpark, which I don't see how he does it, it's essentially the exact same thing. It's the exact same situation. I think you end up feeling like you're getting a deal at quarterback as opposed to maybe overpaying and getting in these situations that some of these other teams are.
Yeah, and when I did the numbers, one other thing that's interesting from looking at the numbers, I looked at the per 17 games for each of them once they got good, basically. So it's not exactly apples to apples. Geno Smith went to Seattle on a cheaper contract and played well, and then got the bigger contract from the Raiders. But Jones is on a cheaper contract and playing this year, which is what Mayfield did. Darnold went from the Vikings on a cheap contract, played really well, and is now now got the other bigger contract. But the numbers are very similar. Geno Smith averaged, I think, 25 touchdowns per 17 games. That was over more seasons. But the other three were all at now. For Jones, I'm combining his rushing and passing touchdowns. He's at 34 over 17 games. I don't think to have 17 passing touchdowns and 17 rushing touchdowns for a quarterback for a season seems crazy. But at 34 touchdowns is right in line with what Mayfield and Darnold did. The 0 interceptions is the other thing. We did address that earlier. Clearly, he's going to throw some interceptions. That'll bring his passer rating down. He's still probably going to could easily be a little bit better than all three of those guys, but he's going to be in the ballpark. So it's really interesting to me that the numbers are that as good as he's played, they're not significantly different than those guys. And $60 million of it's guaranteed. That means you're going to have 1 year where he's going to play for you no matter what. And if it turns out that this was kind of a fluke, then you can probably get out of it fairly cheaply the second year, like all the way these contracts are structured. So, I mean, it didn't even cross my mind that paying him $40 million a year is a sticker shock thing for what you said, and that's just the price of doing business. But I could understand some fans seeing that. But if he keeps up anything close, 90% of what he's doing, that's what it's going to be if the Colts want to keep him, or if he wants to go somewhere else and play for someone else.
Well, like the other thing in terms of, I think what's happened is that the money has really gotten higher than people expected, and so like I feel like every deal now people are like, I can't believe this person got that much. But like, if say they're re-signing him, he's almost guaranteed. If he's in these numbers that we're talking about, and again, I don't see how you wouldn't be, to be getting paid less than a bunch of edge rushers.
Right.
The Micah Parsons is getting $46.5 million. That's a significant amount. TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, they're all over 40. Danielle Hunter is at 35. So you're kind of looking on a per year basis that you'd be paying your quarterback like an edge rusher. And if you're getting the level of play Jones is doing right now, which again, that's all we can say. We don't know. We haven't seen anything else from him. And that's kind of what this conversation is based on, is what it looks like if it's like that. That's a really good deal for a quarterback. I wonder if that's something that factors into the decision making when you're doing this is, this is a way to kind of keep the cost down somewhat at quarterback, at least for the first couple of years. Now, when Mayfield comes up for his extension, I think maybe next year, it was only a 3-year deal.
I think he has 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah, when Mayfield comes up for his deal, he's going to cash in.
And I think it's, and the point here is, do you think anyone in Tampa Bay is complaining about paying Baker Mayfield $33 million a year? No, he's been great. Now, the flip side of this is these guys haven't been good previously. We're doing this basically off 1 year. Geno Smith's a little different, but we're doing this off 1 year. So you're not going to get paid like this is who you are. You're going to have to give back a little bit of money as a quarterback. So it makes sense. So, I mean, again, we'll see if this keeps up. We'll see where Daniel Jones ends up. We'll see what Daniel Jones wants. But I don't think those numbers are out of the realm of possibility at all. All right. Hey, I hope Sean is still on. If I looked awkward while I was talking, it's because I was running numbers on StatHead from Pro Football Reference. These are not Anthony Richardson is at the bottom of the minimum of attempts here. But if you look at percentage of first downs per attempt in the red zone, he had 21 first downs on 56 attempts. That puts him 15th of every quarterback from 2023 through 2025. That's very good, in terms of converting first downs, even though the overall numbers aren't necessarily blow you away. The rushing numbers are good. The passing numbers aren't great. But 37.5% of the times he was the one handling the ball, the team got a first down. Like I say, that's very good. For the touchdown percentage, he's at 25%. That's 35th. That's not as good, obviously, but that's for where you would think he ranks. That's not bad. And now, as I look at these numbers, I don't think it's just 2023 through 2025. I don't know what time frame I'm looking at, but nonetheless, that just makes it more impressive if he's going up against more quarterbacks than what I was originally planning to do. That I'm willing to give Sean some credit here and say I don't know that Richardson was fantastic, but he was effective in the red zone, certainly. So it doesn't change my opinion and what you said, that you can't really put him out there just to put him out there. But it is interesting, and I give Sean credit for saying that he was good in the red zone, and there's a strong argument for that.
Well, I wonder if we usually talk about, the way this season has started, it's kind of eliminated this conversation that we normally have. But we normally talk about when a coach gets a new quarterback, it usually takes about half a season for them to figure out like what works best for them. I wonder if there's an element of that with the red zone with Daniel Jones, where like everything else is working really well, but is that going to be something that you're looking at and you're going, hey, after 4 or 5 or 6 games, we've got this information on what's worked and what hasn't, and we're gonna do a little bit more of that. One other interesting thing about the red zone and the short yardage is that Jonathan Taylor really isn't generally very good in short yardage, and I don't really understand why. He's big and fast and has good vision, but sometimes it seems like his decision making down there is a little bit skewed. I don't know. It's really weird. It's a really strange thing to me that happens to him. Somebody who's such a great player and such a good runner just about everywhere else is not so great in short yardage. Watley is currently opening the door, looking at me, and then shutting it again.
I will say that it's different. There's no doubt that there's less field. Obviously, there is. It's just a different. The math, the geometry, or whatever you want to call it, is different in the red zone than it is when you're out in the open field. I don't think I doubt anyone would argue that point. And yeah, it's clear that Jonathan Taylor is not as good at it. I guess it is a little bit of a surprise, but it's interesting that it works that way. And you would think he would be, why would he not be a good short yardage back as good as he is everywhere else?
Yeah, it's very odd. And we've already seen with the Colts that, like, even if they had someone who was a good short yardage back, like, for instance, I believe when you looked up the and one stats, that the only player, and one meaning 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 2nd and 1, the only player who wasn't a quarterback in the top 5 of those stats was Kyren Williams, who they're going to see this week with the Rams.
Yes.
And so he's good in short yardage, but I think one of the things we've seen with this Colts team is that if Jonathan Taylor is healthy, he's on the field for just about everything. They're not going to pull him off the field unless it's garbage time or unless he really needs a break. And so I don't even know if they had one of those players, if they would give that guy the ball. Yeah,
it is interesting. Probably should, but would they? Is a good question.
Well, they also probably should give DJ Giddens a couple carries a game just to keep Jonathan Taylor fresh, and they seem disinclined to do that as well.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that you don't want to kill your running back by running. The data is pretty clear that you don't want to do that. So that's I just never understood. It's how hard is it to put him out there for a few plays? It shouldn't be that hard.
Well, I think the thing about Taylor is, and this has been illustrated the last couple of games here. I think the Colts sort of look at it as you never know when Jonathan Taylor is going to hit a 68-yarder or a 46-yarder. And if you go back and look at those games, for long stretches of those games, the Colts weren't really hitting anything. And so I think they just feel like we have to give him all the carries in case one of them busts. But, you also want him available to bust one at some point. So
yeah, I just worry about that. And
you don't want to get to the back half of the season and you want to give Jonathan Taylor the ball and you can't. This is actually a really interesting statistic I just found. And I don't know if it means anything, but it's very interesting for the early part of this season. There are 9 running backs who have 50 carries or more through the first 3 games of the season. Only 2 of those running backs, Jonathan Taylor and James Cook of Buffalo, are averaging better than 4.1 yards per carry. And 6 of those running backs are at 3.7 yards per carry or less.
Huh. Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially with all the talk about running backs not being valuable and all that kind of stuff. And it seemed to go the other way last year. So, and I just reran the numbers for 2023 through 2025. Richardson is 11th among quarterbacks in first down percentage, 21st in touchdowns. So a little bit better than what I read earlier. Interesting that it doesn't change more than that. But again, I think Sean's justified in saying that he was a fantastic, might be a little strong, but very good at the very worst red zone quarterback. When he was playing there, obviously.
Yeah, the mobility definitely helps. The ability to pick up yards. And the other thing is to run through people in the red zone is something that's like, just thinking back over a lot of the plays that he made in his time here, a lot of them were running through people at the goal line. I don't really know if Jones is going to do that. I also don't really know if I would want Jones to do that if I'm the Colts, because Richardson often got hurt doing that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what they come up with, because Shane Steichen has otherwise been very, very good with game planning and play calling and everything else. As you mentioned, if the reason that the red zone hasn't been a bigger issue so far is that Rigoberto Sanchez only holds. He never punts.
Yeah, and the names at the top of the first down percentage list for the most part won't surprise you. Josh Allen's number 1. Brock Purdy, a little surprising, he's number 2. Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson, Jake Browning, although he's at the low end of the attempts. Lamar Jackson, Mason Rudolph, again, low end of the attempts. Drake May, Sam Darnold, Mac Jones, then Anthony Richardson, then Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. So it is very clearly being mobile helps you convert first downs in the red zone. But all right, we're going to wrap it up right there so Watley can get more ranch dressing on his carrots. And please like and subscribe. Watley needs a new pair of shoes. And this will, if you like and subscribe, Joel will be able to afford them.
He does need a new pair of shoes. That's actually true.
And we will talk to you. We will be back on again Sunday night after the Rams game. Thank you for joining us.